I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Jacquis Robertson. Many of us met Jacquis in 2015 when she became our Director of Religious Education. For several years, she brought our kids and us adults spirituality, learning, and fun. She has moved on to bring her gifts to the wider world, and we so appreciate the time she spent with us. I was the lucky one who got to reach out to Jacquis for a Sunday service. Her enthusiasm and gratefulness for welcoming her to our pulpit was so affirming and made me smile hugely. Jacquis currently serves as the Vice President of Strategy and Engagement at Griffin Place. Prior to Griffin Place, she held various roles focused on working with youth. Jacquis has an educational background in sociology with a bachelor's in comparative religion from Western Michigan University, and is currently getting her master's in organizational leadership at Bethel University. When Jacquis is not working, she can be found hanging out with her fiance and her cat and dog. Welcome back, Jacquis.
Aw, thank you so much. I really warmed my heart. Thank you so much, Kimberly. So today's reading actually comes from Adrienne Marie Brown, and it's an excerpt from Emergent Strategy. If you have not read that book, you should get it like today. Well, maybe not today because it's snowy outside, but maybe tomorrow. But the reading goes like this. I thought then, and I think now, this can't be all. No one survives this way, not long term. This can't be the purpose of our species, to constantly identify each other as other, build walls between us, and engage in both formal and informal war against each other's bodies. I see the miraculous in others. Even those who hate me have heartbeats, and I generally assume have people they love. And again, that's from Adrienne Marie Brown, and that's an excerpt from Emergent Strategy. Well, good morning, UUCC. It's great to be here with you, even though it's virtual. It's wonderful to be back, So today we're talking about humanity and recognizing that in one another, and how that in itself is an act of resistance and is quite arguably how we create the future we seek and deserve. Now, this seems easy enough, right? Engaging in things we share, right? And using that to save the world, right? Can't be too difficult. In theory, yes. And that's what we're going to get into today, right? So we're first going to explore humanity, right? What that means to us personally and what that universal definition is. And then we'll break down this concept of shared humanity. Again, what that term looks like for us, how we engage with shared humanity, and then we'll explore how the term is universally perceived. And then we'll explore ways to engage in it, big and small. Now, I want to note that today we're really looking at this concept through a very overarching lens. This all can be explored deeper, but that would take a little bit more time than we have today. So I just want to recognize that. Right. So before we start, I would encourage you to get a pen and a pad if that's how you record your thoughts, but we're also on some sort of tech device sharing space with each other. So feel free to type your thoughts as well. Right. So getting into it, when I say humanity, what does that mean to you? What does that bring up? It doesn't have to be a coherent sentence. It can just be words. Hey, it doesn't even have to be words. If visuals come up for you, please take the time to draw the meaning. So I'll give you a few seconds to do that, just a few. So again, if you're still working on that, totally fine. But do we understand what that looks like for us? How we identify with that term, or at least are we exploring that, right? So what's the academic definition, right? What does the good old dictionary say about humanity? Well, humanity is defined by Merriam-Webster in the following ways: quality or state of being human, quality or state of being kind to other people or animals. And then lastly, all people. And I'll repeat that for the sake of emphasis. So quality or state of being human, quality or state of being kind to other people or animals. And then lastly, all people. So when I did this exercise myself, my definition of the term or how I engaged with it was more in line with the second definition. It looked at humanity not just through the lens of being human, but as something that transcended to all sentient beings, something that allowed human descriptors to be attributed to animals and the like. Now, maybe this comes from my own experience with my animals. I talk with my partner all the time about how my dog Nina might be more human than us. Her ability to express herself in a way that resonates with us and has the utmost personality is pretty amazing. As I speak right now, she is laying on the couch snoring like a human. But I also find that that definition also demands that the way in which we engage with each other, the ways in which we respect each other, transcends to those beings as well, which in a lot of ways will put into question a lot of practices that we in our society engage in that may in some ways compromise that, right? So Adam Waitz, spelled W-A-Y-T-Z, talks about this in his book, The Power of Human, how our shared humanity can help us create a better world, when he speaks about the samurai crab. So the samurai crab is named because its shell markings resemble the faces of a select group of samurai warriors. Biologists speculate that fishermen who caught the crabs, upon viewing the human-like faces, would throw them back to sea out of respect. This in turn allowed the crabs to reproduce and grow. So this displays how even human-like features can change the trajectory of one whole species. Something to think about, right? So we've talked through humanity, right? Then what's shared humanity, right? What's that? So I'll give you a few seconds to explore that term and what it means to you, right? It doesn't have to be coherent, it doesn't even have to be words. And again, I'll give you a few seconds to explore that for yourself, right? So just a few, something to think about. You can type it up or write it down. And if you're still working on it, that's fine too. So shared humanity isn't this thing that's easily defined, but instead has some very key components, right? Again, in the book, The Power of Human, How Our Shared Humanity Can Help Us Create a Better World by Adam Waitz, he defines these critical components as the following, right? Human presence, human touch, and human creation. All of these components can give value if instilled or applied authentically. And then lastly, being moral concern and social thought. So once we can see human, right, we consider the entity worthy of moral rights, including freedom from harm and basic dignity. So did your definition of the term align with that? I know when I engaged in the activity myself, it did. It just wasn't so eloquently put. It brought to the forefront an experience I had when I was in high school. So I was a part of this group called DALT, which stood for Diversity Awareness Leadership Training. And it was a program that Sarah Drum created, right? And it explored race, class, and gender identity in a way that young people could understand and grasp. And we would go to a camp for like 2.5 days and do small and large group work around these terms. But we also would do like camp stuff. So canoe and archery and ropes courses and all that fun stuff. But anyway, at the end of the 2.5 days, Sarah will put us in 2 lines, right? While in these 2 lines, we would just look at each other, then move to the next person, and so on and so forth, until we were able to look at each and every person in the eyes. We couldn't talk. We would just look. And everyone would end up crying by the end of it, right? Because it engaged that shared humanity. It acknowledged the relationships we built, the experiences that we had, and the care that we curated for each other just by looking into each other's eyes, right? So it engaged all the components Adam Waitz brings to light. just by looking into each other's eyes. So is it as simple as looking into each other's eyes? Is that all we have to do? To some degree, yes, right? So what are different ways we can engage in this idea of shared humanity in a world that's riddled with pain, polarization, and uncertainty? Well, one is the curation of space where we can be honest and authentic, right? For those that don't know, I'm a trained restorative justice practitioner, and this is something we often talk about in our work. Can the space we curate hold real authentic communication, right? The space, whether it's for discussion, circle facilitation, meetings, can it hold an honest answer to how are you? Or is the space hoping you don't say anything other than I'm okay or I'm all right? I feel the next natural question is, okay, well, how do you curate space that holds that? Well, just like shared humanity, there isn't one way to curate that space, but there are necessary components that have to be present, like time. Having a little extra time in a meeting for honest conversation goes a long way. So if your work meeting is set for 30 minutes, add like an extra 5 to that. I know it's a pain, totally in the Zoom world, but you'll be happy you did it, right? The next is intentionality. So making time to collectively agree to a space and how that will operate will be a benefit to you as well. And the last is simply communication, right? In the line of communication, I'm gonna be very honest with you. Sadly, my allergies are acting up, so I may have to turn off the video for a little bit, if that is all right with the collective, again, in that whole communication piece. So my apologies. So I'm still here with you. I apologize, my friends. But again, I think it's a display of, again, shared humanity, right? We're going through this human experience together. So thank you for that. That's a prime display of shared humanity, right? So again, having that whole intentionality piece, right? Curating a space for us to be able to hold those honest and open communications, having extra time to engage in that, right? And then just being very open, right? Again, ways in which we can engage in this. So this is a small way, right? So what's the large way, right? What's the large way that we engage with shared humanity, right? And the big one is engaging in systems change work, right? If a system is not engaging in shared humanity, it is causing harm, plain and simple, right? These systems that we're actively fighting against are all rooted in dehumanization. That's how things like racism, sexism, classism, and the list go on, manifest and thrive. So being a part of that work is actively dismantling, right? That's the bigger ask, right? In Kalamazoo, we're lucky to have a lot of groups and organizations that are doing a lot of good work with tactics like community building and storytelling and healing at the helm, like Isaac, which I know you all are a part of, TRHT, Emergent Justice, and the list goes on, right? But this work, more importantly, starts with you. How you engage with yourself, in a lot of respects, dictates how you engage with others. So taking time to assess how you are, doing a real and authentic check-in with yourself and being honest with yourself goes a long way. Let's be honest. These past 2 years have been a lot. So taking time to check with yourself and have authentic communication with yourself is not wasted time. So please do that first and foremost. In the words of Harriet Lerner, only through our connectedness to others can we really know and enhance the self. And only through working on the self can we begin to enhance our connectedness to others. Thank you.